Who's familiar with Able Tech? Okay, so we are the state program for assistive technology. And specifically what that means for you guys is we're here to help public schools. If you've been around for quite a while, OATC used to be the organization that helped, and then they had to go through the whole funding thing and ask for new proposals and all that, and so Able Tech is the agency that does it now. So we've been working closely with them over the past several months to get some revisions to Ed Plan related to AT, to make AT make more sense, or to make Ed Plan make more sense for how to fill it out for AT. And so I hope that's why you think you're here, because that's what I'm going to talk about. Feel free to interrupt at any point if you have any questions. This is a very kind of straightforward session, but how many of you felt this way when Ed Plan started last year? It was a little hairy, wasn't it? So I worked in the public schools prior to working for Able Tech, started working for Able Tech this past January. I taught for 2 years at TCC. Prior to that, I worked almost full-time for Wasso Schools. And I've worked for multiple other districts over the years too. So I've been in public schools as an OT, and I'm not one of these OTs that just comes in and does my little thing and steps out. I'm pretty involved. So I kind of get the whole IEP process. I mean, as good as anybody can, right? You know, I'm not an expert, but I kind of get the process. And I remember when we started C's. You guys, we've been around that long for C's, and that was a whole nightmare too, right? So it's going to get easier, right? We're going to get it. Surely from August to May, it was better by May. I'm trying to figure it out. And they're trying, the State Department's trying to get with PCG and work things out. So some of the changes that we have suggested have, or will go into place with this update in August. I don't know if you've been on the Ed Plan website in the past couple of weeks, but it says Ed Plan will not be available from August 1st to 3rd, or I don't remember what the dates are for the upgrade. So some of these changes, so there's some changes going into place, and we'll talk about that. Where we weren't able to get some changes in place, I'll tell you what we think is best practice for how to fill it out based on how it is now. Okay? Does that sound good? Does that sound like a plan? I hope that's what you're wanting. So, as it stands right now, or as it will stand in August, there's 3 places to note AT on the IEP. Best practice would be to make sure you do all of them. There's one that's kind of iffy, and you could probably kind of leave it out if it didn't make sense, and that's the last one. So, under Special Factors, which is on the Strengths and Needs tab, and adding Supplemental Aids, which is on the Services tab, and then the LRE and General Education heading, which is on the Services tab. And these are just some screenshots. I know it's pretty hard to see, but on this little big screen. So first thing to note is that the way the law reads is AT has to be considered for every student. Every student. No matter how mild the disability or how severe, it needs to be considered. And that does not necessarily mean an assessment, but you have to at least think about it. And, excuse me, what do you think that means? Does anyone have any, or how do you handle consideration?
You just discussed it, do you see any need for assistive technology, right?
Okay. Basically, that's what it is. It's a discussion at the IEP meeting with everybody involved. You know, not just the teacher and the speech pathologist, not just the parent and the teacher, but really everybody that's involved with the student. Because everybody has their own niche. You know, everybody has their own specialty. If an OT is involved in the services for this child, an OT should be involved in the AT discussion. Same for PT, visual impairment, whatever. They should all be involved in this discussion. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour discussion. I mean, 10 to 20 minutes is kind of what we think it usually involves. It is discussing what you already know about the student. It's not an assessment. You're not really going through and evaluating or assessing the student on what they need. It's just a discussion about what you already know. You want to look at the student's ability to achieve with and without assistance. That's what you're looking at, okay? And we have a training on this. And we have information going on our website on what consideration is. So if you need some direction in that, reach out to those resources and we can help you with that. Pick up the phone and give us a call. Allison or I, either one, would be happy to talk with you about that. So once you're on the special factors page, you know, where you have to consider their English language learner needs, their vision needs, hearing needs. AT is one of them. check yes or no whether the IEP team considered each special factor to be relevant to the student. So the way it reads right now, you're gonna, number 5 is assistive technology necessary in order to implement the student's IEP, yes or no? So the way it reads right now is literally yes, you need an AT for the student, or no, you don't. In reality, there's probably very few students that you actually say no to, because AT is such a spectrum. There can be some very simple things that don't seem like AT, but they're that low tech, whether it's a pencil grip or a seat disc to help them attend better.
That's what I was just gonna ask, because I only have it on 1 out of my 11,
Mhm.
but they all use pencil grips or slant board. That should all be in their IEP?
It should be in your IEP because, here's why, and I may mention this later too. If you don't put it in there and that student moves, you leave and a new teacher comes in, how do they know what that student needs? No. So in reality, there's probably very few students that should really have a note by their name. I'm not gonna say it's not possible, but that's what it gets really tricky because, and we're gonna talk about this in a minute too, but you don't want to specify a certain thing. You need to specify what they need, the features. So sometimes it gets really hard to do that if you don't know exactly what they need. What we would like for this to say in the future, just in case it comes up, is this question, not as it's written now, but this place in the IEP, everybody would be a yes. Because we want it to ask, have you discussed it? Have you considered it? Because not everybody does. A lot of people think AT is only for your multi-handicapped kids. And there is a range of devices. So we want a question that says, have you discussed it? So that everybody wants to be in compliance, right? We want to help you be in compliance. So if that comes up, you would say, yes, we've discussed it, and then it would be, so what are the needs? And you would either say there are no needs, or here are the needs. But that's not the way it reads right now. The way it reads right now is, do they need it, yes or no? So, if you say yes, if you say no, nothing happens. If you say yes, you get the next box, 5A, is if assistive technology is required to implement the IEP, describe the assistive technology that is needed. Now what you don't want to put here is, you don't want to put a NEO, if you use the word processors, if they use a portable word processor. You don't want to put driving naturally speaking. You don't want to put pro loco go for speech. You want to put features, meaning what that device is going to do for them, okay? So here's some possible features. I just tried to think of kind of the gamut of the different areas of AT. So you might need text-to-speech. You might need a device that reads to them. Like maybe you're thinking Bookshare, if you've used Bookshare before, where they can, electronically read the books. But you don't want to put Bookshare because there's other options out there. And you don't want to tie yourself to one for any reason. But text-to-speech is, what they need. You might know if it's going to go from class to class, you might want to put that it needs to be portable or durable, or both. Is it speech output? Do you want it to amplify the amplification, but amplification of what? Might need to say teacher only, so the teacher wears the mic for whatever system you're using and the student has the receiver. Magnifies, again, what do you want it to magnify? And it sounds tedious, but you want to be specific because think again, if you get hit by a bus, okay, let's be more good here. I got your attention tonight. What are they going to do? What's that next person going to do when they come in after? Or what are they going to do when they go to the next school? Because how many of you have lots of kids that move around? They've been lots of places in the last 3 years and they're maybe only with you for 6 months or whatever. So try to be as specific as you can on what they need, but again, not the device. There's some other ideas. Does it need to have switch access? Does it need speech to text? Does it need keyboard? Word prediction, spell check. So those are just a variety of ideas. You want to list what it does. There's some resources that we have in our trainings that help you kind of process through what, it's too big of a topic for this 45-minute session, but process through what kinds of features it needs. Okay. So that was one area. Second one is add supplemental aids. And this is under the services tab. And you're going to go to that third area and click on add supplemental aids. And this is, again, you're kind of being redundant, but every place it kind of seems to ask for a little bit more information. So right now, if you've ever been here, you click on that first drop-down box of none, where it says none right now, and it says AT/Braille, AT/something else, AT/word prediction. first of all, we couldn't figure out why it said AT, because obviously we know we're talking about AT. So they've taken out that AT word. And there's gonna be a big list of options here that cover all the areas from vision, hearing, motor, like handwriting, ADLs, like eating, maybe they need adaptive utensils. There's a big list of options. And so that's what will come up in that document. Let me see. It's on the screen somewhere. Okay. So vision, speech, daily living, hearing, hearing might be voice amplification, captioning, noise buffers, sign language interpreter. Now, can we think of everything absolutely that you're gonna, possibly need under here? No, but we tried to give them a list.
And you may be getting ready to say this last minute, but we had an issue this year when we did use supplemental aids, and because it asks for an amount of time and sessions, and so then that was calculating into the LRE. Is that still the case? Okay.
I don't think so. Okay. But I'm gonna talk about it. Physical, reading, writing, math, computer access, behavior. Now, they are not grouped, they're not headed like this in the list. We've seen the preliminary changes, but they are in order like this. So you just gotta scroll down and see if you can find what you're looking for. Okay. Now, if it's not there, then you've got the section below that says adding custom supplemental aids. So this is gonna be an open text box, and you just type in whatever it is that you wanna use, okay? Again, don't be specific, not a brand name, but what you need that to do. Okay? All right, now, so now you have that number of sessions and session length like we were talking about, and the start and end date and the training and implementation. And this was my big beef with how this was set up, I'll just be honest, is because AT, you cannot determine, there's no way to know in advance when you're gonna use any specific thing. You can't know that it's gonna be used 30 minutes a day, every day of the week. It's gonna depend on where and when and what subject and the circumstances. So this is something that's still in progress on getting that changed. However, I can tell you that right now, at least it appears by us testing, that you can leave number of sessions and session length blank. And I think you can even leave start and end date blank. So, you're looking at me skeptically. I did not get an error
Okay.
when I tested it on a fake student.
Okay.
I did not get an error. So, please understand, there's possible I don't know everything.
Okay.
Did I just say that? I don't know everything.
I know that makes
That's
it
still
that's
recording.
why.
So did you go to it and try to finalize the IEP and all that stuff?
I did try to finalize it, but you know how when you save and go on, it gives you the red, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And I didn't get that.
But it changes it without telling you that. The ESY, it used to change when you said you were to do reading and math and ESY, that it would change the time and the LRE and everything. But it did give you that you made a mistake, it just changed it. And unless you went back and looked for it, you didn't know.
Okay.
So, but they fixed that,
Maybe.
because we had to uncheck math and reading.
Okay.
It was a mess, but.
Well, I tell you what, I would love, because we're having this discussion in here, for you guys to contact me, I'll give you my business cards, send me an email or whatever as you start using it in the fall, and tell me what it's really doing, because we don't do full IEPs. I mean, we have access to EdPlan that we can play and just make up students and input different things, but we're not really the ones using it. We know what we think it should say, because like I said, I worked in the school district for years. I get the IEP. I haven't been in the assistive technology world as long as my coworkers have, but so they know what they wanted to say, and I know functionally how it should work. Anyway, I think you can get away with that, but I'm not saying for sure. Now, where it gets tricky is you've got, and this is something that we had them kind of put in, training and implementation, because for training, it is possible to say how many sessions and how long and when you're going to start it, when you're going to end it. That is possible to do. For implementation, it's not, because you don't always know. It might be that you even have to do, you have to put it in once here and once here, because here, we'll just say word processor. You're gonna train you're gonna do 6 sessions for 30 minutes, you're gonna start at the second week of school and end it the third week of school. And what does that training look like? Who is gonna be trained? Where? When? Who's gonna do the training? This is an open text box. That's what we really wanted. We said it just needs to be open. Don't put any parameters on it. so that you can put in what's appropriate. Maybe it's the parent and the teacher that need to be trained by the company rep on this speech generating device. And then they're gonna work with the student later. Or maybe the student's gonna be involved with that company rep or the speech pathologist or whatever. And then you may need to come down here and put it again, where you leave out the number of sessions and the session length. And you're gonna talk about implementation and when that's gonna take place. And say it's a word processor, but they're not gonna do fill in the blank on a word processor or whatever. So you wanna say maybe assignments of 4 sentences in length or longer is when they're gonna use this device. Or, as a speech generating device, they will have this device available to them in all aspects of the school. Cafeteria, PE, recess, all classrooms, general education, special education, whatever. You just try to be specific as you can without limiting yourself or the student. Okay, now, so I put all of that information in slides. Let me see if I really covered it all. Number of sessions, how many sessions will be conducted? How long will each session be? These is kind of no-brainers. What are the start and end dates for using the device in this manner? So, for training or for implementation. Again, for implementation, you could say, like, for services and everything, I think everybody kind of tends to just put the IEP year for the start and end date, no matter what it is. There might be some things every now and then you go, oh no, we're not going to use that the whole year, but I don't know what that would be. But, so you might be able to do start date and end date for implementation too, and just make it the IEP year. Training, again, who needs to be trained? Who will do the training? Where will it occur? And again, it relates to the number of sessions, the session length, and the start and end dates that you put on that line. And for implementation, you would describe where, for what activities, and under what circumstances, to give you some thought processes to work through on what you would put there. Okay? So, adding services from a list. Now, this is the third place, LRE and general education. So this is where it says, to what extent will the student not be included? This is in that area. And it's really open-ended. Let me see make sure I see what I wanted to say. Define below any supplementary aids and services, program modifications, and/or supports for personnel in general education or other education-related setting, not otherwise addressed as special education or related services. So you get to that line that says not otherwise addressed. So if you put it everywhere else, if you really explained it, I don't know that you have to put anything here. But does it hurt just to go ahead and summarize again? Of course, we all know they're recording me and I'm saying all these bad things about our IEP process. There's a lot of redundant places on the IEP, right? We've seen that in a lot of areas. So sometimes we feel silly saying the same thing over 3 times in a row to the parents. We've said this already, we're going to say it again. But at least it covers and makes sure that it gets done for the student. So this is a good place maybe just to summarize again whatever training or features of a device that you want to make sure that the student has, that the team has decided that the student needs. Okay? So the 3 places, special factors, make sure you've considered it in the team meeting and that you're not just going, well, they're pretty high functioning, they don't need a team. Make sure it's being considered and describe the features there, listed as the aid, the supplemental aid, with the specifics on training and implementation, and maybe summarize it here on LRA and general education. Okay? So, you kind of gave me the one example and question of the time factor. And someone I think actually called us about that. Was that you guys?
The time factor?
That it would factored into the LRE
Yeah,
time.
that was my question.
Yeah. Did you guys call Able Tech? Somebody
No, I've
called us about it, but-
emailed Ed Plan, raised my hand, Ed Plan meetings, and stayed part of meetings, and they don't, everybody's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I've never gotten an answer on any questions either.
it's not.
Yeah.
But it did factor in. I don't know now because I haven't used one, but as of the end of school, when a teacher was using the supplemental aids section that required time in it, even though it wasn't really something that we pulled out, it was just supplemental to whatever
Right.
we're doing. and it factored in as an amount of time in the LRE.
Yeah. And supplemental is exactly that. It
It
shouldn't
shouldn't.
factor, it should be part of it.
No, but they all gave me kind of blank looks, and I would say that, and then they don't really want to do with it because they had other things to do
Yeah.
with. So I just told our people not to use that for a while, and we put it somewhere else.
Well, if you could, I mean, you could just kind of put it in that last part.
Right,
and
we
write
put
the
it
way
some-
you want it to be,
Right.
and,
Somewhere else,
Go
but
with
don't
that.
put it in where it requires a time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
So if you were saying that if, it'll just go ahead and figure it for you, so what happens if you leave it blank? You think that it would give you the error to go back and do it?
I don't know, probably if you leave anything blank, it usually does.
I know it usually does.
Can you put just a dot? Period.
But there's not.
Oh.
I put lots of,
I love the
I put
period.
lots of periods in my IEPs.
The thing about, well, I don't know. Because those are open text boxes, they're not drop-down menus. And I'm not a software person, but I don't think it can pull that. It can know what you typed in there.
Right,
I don't
put
think it
lots
can.
of, especially when we're entered, like he was, I don't know if you were sitting in that last thing where they were saying, you need to enter every single needs.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
I'm
I'm
like,
having a little bit of a
I
hard time
almost
with
said something ugly.
that. Mhm.
I thought we're going
seconded
through
your
putting a
ugly
date,
comment.
SLD, dot, 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 that's gonna be the needs. I mean, really, that's all we can do.
Yeah. But
Because,
I think you could enter the word no in that box, and it's not gonna know, because when it's a drop down and there's a 1, a 2, a 3, or whatever, the software can pull that information to something else, but I don't think it can when it's an open text box, which is what those are supposed to be now. So I think you can leave them blank.
So there's not like a 30-minute thing?
Right, there's no drop down there, it's completely
I
open.
didn't go to the session about the changes and plan.
Yeah, I don't think they were discussing anything related to AT, I kind of looked at what they were,
one
at
of
least
the-
some of
I
them.
think the only thing they, because I went, is they just addressed that there was gonna be the drop down with the, I know I lost my train of thought, but with the.
The
You
devices, the
talked
things I talked
about
about,
it.
yeah, the different features, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes, that's the features, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, because that's really the only change that has come into place except for the way this is laid out with the training and the implementation boxes. Those are supposed to be in place before school starts. Well, in August, I guess here in Oklahoma City. They start August 1. What was that?
It was a snicker, and just being all
We've lost half our
cynical.
staff and they're wanting us to go in and do all this stuff,
Oh,
yeah.
You know, and then plus the, it will be, yeah.
Everything will go straight from SIS to Ed Plan and back and forth, and you won't have to enter anything.
Yeah. Well, all I can say about this is that, no, I get it, I get it. And we want to help you guys, stuff related to AT. So feel free to call us on that note, I'm gonna get my business cards out. But, they have sent us screenshots of what it's supposed to look like. So, that have come straight from PCG, to OSDE. And Angela Clark then sends them to us and says, this is what it's gonna look like, is this okay? Well, it's not exactly what we wanted, but you know what, it's July, and we'll take it, and hope for more improvement after that. So, we would love to have conversations with you guys, because and I know that SDE is trying to do that, but there's such a broad, there's so many things in our IEP system that could be changed and
Oh,
improved
yeah,
and
thank you.
all that. So it's pretty broad for them, whereas we can just focus on AT. So we can kind of have these little discrete conversations, not secret, but discrete, just about this. And maybe try to affect some change that way. So, and you guys are the ones doing it. So I still work in this school, so I'm working to do it to some extent, but. What other questions do you have? I knew this was gonna be kind of a short.
I want to go back just a little bit and ask a question. If a student needs something to help hold a pencil, so you do not put a 3-sided pencil graph, you just say.
You could say 3-sided because if that's what you need.
Say
Yeah,
3-sided?
yeah. I wouldn't
Just
put the
don't
brand name.
don't say
brand name.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
the pencil
Acme
grip,
brand,
yeah.
Okay.
Stetro grip,
It's
or.
just like if they need a tablet, don't say they need an iPad, or you
Okay.
will have to provide an
Yeah.
iPad.
Right.
You know, maybe they need a spot to identify where their thumb goes
Yeah.
on the pencil grip, you know, like, I'm not
Okay,
sure what I'm
yeah.
thinking of, but the Stetro that has the 3 finger holes and there's a star to show where your thumb goes, you know, maybe is that what they need, you know, that, something to identify, how to place their fingers on that.
So you can say a slide forward.
Mhm.
Okay. What was the other question? What if a family has provided the tablet? Can you still put it in the IEP, or does it have to be something that the school is providing?
You could still put it in the IEP, if they're gonna be using it, if they need it to meet their IEP goals,
Well,
then,
somebody had mentioned to me, you don't want to put it in the IEP because if there's breaks or, you know, something happens to theirs, then he still needs to use it and the school will have to buy
That's
it.
right.
that's right. And that's where you come into, it is the school's responsibility to provide the device. It is. Now, if a parent wants to, that's great. If we can get other funding, that's great. But if a student needs it to reach their IEP goals, the school has to provide it.
But
So,
in that case, what I would do, I've worked a little of in assistive tech in Broken Arrow, is I would just document, student is using iPad provided
by parents.
by parent, but you'd also probably want to determine that it is a need. I don't know, that's kind of
You
a
might say,
tricky
you
one.
might say that this device has not been determined to be necessary for
Or
academic
students
success.
allowed to use,
Yeah, or
students
some-
permitted
yeah.
to use
Students
device
are
provided by
permitted to use the
parent.
Yeah,
device provided by
some-
parent.
yeah.
Don't put in there that it's necessary. I mean, unless you really think it is. If it is, it is. But if it's not, if it's
Yeah, but
something
good
that
luck telling
parents.
your
just
superintendent
send
if you
in.
think it is, so.
Yeah. And in that case, I would put specifically what they are using that the parent has provided. So you're saying, so what you're doing there is you are kind of releasing the school from the responsibility of providing that specific device.
Mhm.
Because, you know, they may be providing an iPad, but it may be something different that he could also use, that maybe the school already has.
So probably should rethink how I wrote the goals. Because I wrote his goals using he has ProBook quote,
Mhm.
and the parents provided it, and the iPad.
Yeah. I would not write any goals specific to a device. Look at what you really want him to accomplish. Are you wanting him to make 3-word sentences? Are you wanting him to, I'm just pulling things out of the air.
Yeah.
What is the function that you want him to do in the classroom? And then that device is just supporting that.
Okay. I understand.
Like, when I think of OT, because you have to excuse me because that's my frame of reference. I really don't care if they hold the pencil with the tripod grasp or not. I want the function of, is their handwriting legible? So my goals are gonna be that they're gonna write 3 sentences legibly. I'm not gonna write that they're gonna hold their pencil with other OTs will,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we have that on the law.
but I don't, because
They
that
were complete
doesn't
sentences
matter.
with using a tripod grasp,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Yeah.
I rarely change a pencil grasp.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell them to and they'll do it, but then functionally, when they go back in the classroom, I rarely change
I'm with you.
a person's pencil grasp. So I'm not gonna write it as a goal because it doesn't matter. What matters is their function, their output. Can they write legibly? That's what I wanna see. And I will use whatever manner in therapy to get there. And if a pencil grip is what works, great. But if it's not, why did I tie myself to that?
Yeah. Well, we've got, I mean, ours are young, so they're still focusing on trying to get the correct.
Right.
Mhm.
grasp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I told the people who came to my writing one, because we talked a little bit about handwriting. I said, I could talk for 2 hours about handwriting and pencil grip and how much grip really matters and in my professional opinion. Of experience. No research behind it, just my everyday experience of.
I'm with you. They looked at my children's children and their pencil grasp when they were doing pre-kindergarten testing. And they didn't like what they saw. And immediately said, your children will need to be in the slow class into 2 years of kindergarten. I said, why? He said, because they're not grasping the pencil correctly. And I went, wow.
Back in the day.
No, I don't think so.
When I signed my stuff for when I got my teaching degree, when you have to go to that, to Oklahoma State or whatever, and I signed my signature, they're like, how did you make it through school? I was like,
Yeah.
She
The
said
muscles in
very
our
well,
hands
thank you.
learn how they need
Apparently
to.
it's legible, I've got a lot of kids that, you know, kind of hold it.
My daughter
But
holds
it's
hers
legible.
here.
Yeah.
She's a lefty and she holds it there.
Wow.
And it's interesting to
And then
watch
she
her
can
write.
write.
Yeah, she writes fine. She's an
Because you
RA.
don't have the.
Gotta see what I can do with my toes.
If you want my freebie advice, if we're done talking about F-plan, we're not talking about pen. Here it is. The real trick is you want the pencil to be able to move with the fingers and not with the whole hand. And the thumb is usually critical in that. So when you try to force, I don't know word, a 3-year-old to hold a pencil correctly, their muscles are not ready to do that yet. So they're gonna get really stiff and they're gonna do this. And that thumb's not gonna move. See how that joint's locked out right there? That thumb is not gonna move. And then that's gonna become what's familiar and comfortable to them, and that's what they're gonna do, and it's gonna be hard to break. The way I like to break it is by having them put their pencil there, and then it forces more movement. And this is a very functional grasp, because look, if I have 3 points on the finger,
Yeah.
on the pencil, just like that.
We have some of those pencils. Like
The
wishbone.
twisted right. Those just aren't real good for little kids because they're actually too big for their hands. They can't really get their fingers down in the spot just right.
I had really good luck this last year with a high-functioning autistic child that really hated writing. And it was, a lot of different things. But we used one of the Pentiums pencils.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. He'd write all day long as he had that. As soon as we took it away, nothing.
Different things work for different kids. There's no one thing that works for everybody. And just because it works now doesn't mean it's gonna work later, and just because it doesn't work now doesn't mean it might not work later. So that's why you don't wanna tie yourself to one device on an IEP. You wanna put what you need it to accomplish.
This is off topic a little bit, but since you're an OT, what about kids who don't like to cross the midline and they write both left and right? We're at the point now where it's like, okay, should we pick a hand for them and make them stick to it, or what are we gonna do?
And how old are we talking?
9, 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to pick a hand.
Okay, I agree. OT doesn't necessarily agree, but I agree.
If you were still in the 5 to 6 range, I'd be saying, but how do you pick a hand?
Yeah.
I always see when they go to wash their hands, or when they go to flush the toilet, or when they go to eat, what hand they usually.
You can look at quality of what they do, but then you can also look at what their natural reaction is. If you put something right in midline in front of them, which hand do they pick it up with? Is there a diagnosis for this child, or is,
Well, actually, there's 3 of them in my room like
oh
that.
my gosh.
2 have Down syndrome and 1 is,
Okay.
so
Well, yeah, when you're talking about a child that's really got a delay, I don't know, that might still be a tricky situation. When you think about Down syndrome and other things that really cause a lower developmental level, it's hard to say. I have a good friend with a child with autism, and he's 5, and she's like, the potty training, I just can't get the potty training. Like, he's 5. He's got autism.
Yeah.
He's more like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
He's a great kid, and he does a lot of things that a lot of kids with your classical autism can't. But still, potty training.
It's difficult.
I just got a baby at home. She really liked having that diapers too. So, any other random questions? I'm happy to talk. I love to talk about what I do.
I need a random question. When I first came to, I worked for Warner District, when I first came to the district, first year I was there, we actually participated in some of your training, and it was all jacked up, and nobody got credit, and it was quite irritating. Have you had any complaints lately? Is that all straightened? Because I have actually just kind of pushed that back, way back, because I don't want to deal with, having to do the same training twice and not getting credit and
Well, you say
all
not
that kind
getting
of
credit,
stuff.
what from,
It's like they would say, like, maybe 4 of us attended a training session, and only 1 or 2 of us would be listed as having attended, and so therefore we would meet the criteria to be able to go on and do this or that. or the other, and it was just kind of one of those things.
To
It was
be a
just-
teen. like,
Yeah, this
an
is too much
IEP.
trouble.
And
This is
when
just
was
too much
this?
trouble. This was 4 years ago.
Okay, I'm trying to remember, because I've just been with Able Tech since January. When I went through the AT team trainings, it was OATC was doing them. And that was, they had your teams come like one day a month for a whole year, and they did everything in 1 year. And now with Able Tech, they've spaced it out, so you actually have time to learn and apply, and it's just a different philosophy. It's not that one's right or wrong or anything, but just a different approach to it. And I'm not sure when they started, was it through Able Tech?
Yeah, it was
Okay,
still.
okay, because I think it was about 5 years ago that the SDE switched.
I think that Able Tech was a pretty new entity at
Yeah.
the time we were trying to do it, but all I know is everybody got so frustrated. I was there, why are they not showing me there, you know?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything
Okay.
since. And it does sound like, it was a learning process, it was a learning curve on, they know AT, but trying to do a new project with the trainings and things might have been there might have been some glitches. So, but I haven't heard anything. You should come back.
Well, if they raise mileage, we'd love to, I don't know, we gotta watch see. I don't see much training happening. Are you guys gonna have to do everything with them?
I mean, it's just.
There is no travel,
Die.
there is no travel budget.
If you picked up the training thing, we are doing something new this fall, webinars on specific categories of AT. So like the first one coming up in September, actually I think there's going to be one in August on AIM, accessible educational materials. And then there's one in September that's on environmental adaptation, so more like the physical aspect of your environment. So that's going to be first. They're free. Everything's free because it's essentially as long as you come to us, it's all free. If you need us to come out and do something, a presentation or something at your school, then we have to charge. But if you come to us, it's all through the State Department of Ed contract. They are putting money into that. I don't know how, but I think a lot of it has to do with this literacy plan improvement plan that we've had to come up with for federal reasons. The state has come up with, if you've heard of the State Systemic Improvement Plan. And it's going to be piloted in the Tulsa area and then reaching out after that. But